The January sales data for the Salt Lake City market has just come in, and we have some massive changes that we need to talk about here in this video. If you've been watching my videos for the last couple of months, you'll see that I've been doing these market updates every single month to show you exactly how the market is shifting and what you need to know when it comes to prices and negotiating on a contract here in Utah. I've had a lot of people reach out, just like yourself, who've been watching these videos, talking to me saying, hey Cody, I'm looking at purchasing a home. I want to buy something. Can you please help me? And what do I need to know about the market? This video is going to be super helpful for you. If you're looking at buying or selling real estate, this will be good information for you to take and be able to use out there in the market. So as we jump in here and take a look at this, January 2023 data has just come in, and I want to scroll up so you can see this here. So this is the the column headers here telling you what information we're actually looking at. And the first thing I want to point out is that the number of sales that happened is down drastically. It got absolutely slaughtered in January of this year, right? A lot of the people who closed in January of this year actually went under contract in December, and because of that 30-day closing time frame, they ended up closing in January but locking up that home in December, which is right in the middle of the holiday season, right? You've got Thanksgiving, then you've got Christmas, people are busy, they got family parties, all these things going on, and so we do usually see this seasonal drop, but the sales that we saw absolutely got decimated. We only saw 1,791 sales for the month of January, which is down substantially. If we look back at what it was the year prior, we saw 2,800, just under. That was mostly due to a lack of inventory. That's why that number was so low. But in normal years, we should see it a little bit higher, right? January of 21 was at 2,872. And even if we come back here, let's go back and take a look at this data for January of 2020. This would be right before COVID. This should update here in just a second. Hopefully, there we go. So January 2020, we're at 2,840. So it's actually pretty consistent year over year for the last couple of years, right? January 2020 at 2,800. Right here is 2,800 as well. And then in 2022, it was 2,800 as well. So it's actually been pretty consistent, but we're down about 1,000 sales less than what we normally see at this time of year. So I do expect that to kind of rebound as we go into the future months, as some of that seasonality comes to an end. And as we go into that spring selling season, we're seeing more homes get listed. We're seeing more buyers jump back into the market, and we're starting to see things kind of pull up. Now, the next thing I want to look at here is actually pricing. So taking a look at this, you can see that the actual list price has come down substantially. I think this is one of the biggest things that is an indicator that the market has finally started to come down, and that we're starting to see sellers get more realistic about what their home is actually worth. As a real estate agent, when you go and talk to a seller and you say, hey, okay, you want to sell your home, let's see what it's worth, you're going to be looking at what sales have happened over the last 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, maybe even back to 6 months ago, to find that data and find out what homes are actually being listed for and what they're being sold for. The problem with this is that you can see here, prices were declining slowly through the end of 2022, but we weren't seeing the list prices come down nearly as much, right? This was actually kind of remaining flat from August through November, right around that 520 mark. We saw a little bit of a drop in December down to 511, but then we saw a massive drop here in the actual starting price for a lot of these homes. This came down to 495,000, which is roughly 15,000, 16,000 less than what it was in December of 2022. So we actually saw the listing prices come down, but even more importantly, what are the actual sales prices? We saw those come down substantially. So I didn't think that it would drop this much. I was expecting it to be a little bit less than this. We actually saw sales prices across the board drop about $22,000. Now that does depend on, there's going to be a lot of factors, right? If you're looking at a condo in Salt Lake, that's going to be much different than a 6,000 square foot, $1 million home in Draper, right? There's going to be a wide range of homes that we're looking at here, but this is just the median across the board, all home types, everything. So we saw home prices come down about $22,000 on a median basis. And again, even if you're a buyer, more importantly, we saw homes sell for roughly 8% less than what they were originally listed for. So this is kind of the rough range here. If you're going out there negotiating on a home, every home's going to be a little bit different based on the seller situation, but you can expect to negotiate somewhere between 3, 5, maybe even upwards of 10% off of that home, depending on how much they've already dropped it, right? The thing you have to kind of keep in mind here is that if they listed it at, let's say 500,000, but then they dropped it to 480, but then you got it for 450, that 450 is 90% of the value of what it was originally listed at, which is 500, right? So that could be, even though you're saying, hey, it was at 480, I got it for 450, you negotiated 10% off of the final listing price. That's why this number seems a little bit more drastic than it actually might be, right? If it's at 500 and then it comes down to 480, you shouldn't expect to get another 10% off of the 480, right? That would drop it even further, but that's not actually what we're seeing. So that's kind of something that's important there. You do have to kind of look at this on a case-by-case basis. It really depends on each individual home, but this is the important thing to look at. You're looking at homes selling for quite a bit less than they're actually listed for, and we've seen a pretty big drop here. Now, I don't know if this is going to be just a seasonal thing. We'll have to see what the data plays out through the month of February, how this actually looks in the coming weeks, but I do expect a little bit of a rebound here. I wouldn't be surprised to see February sales much higher and also the sales price be much higher in January than we saw in in the months prior, right? I could see this being at 460. It shows 475 right here, being that we're filming this on the 1st of February. This says 475. I wouldn't be surprised to see the month of February end somewhere like 460, 465 when it's all said and done. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But the last thing I want to look at here is going to be days on market, which we see continue to increase month over month. We've seen this up to 53 days on market. That's the average for most homes. I think there's going to be a lot of homes that are still selling very quickly. I have seen this. I've seen homes that get listed and they go under contract in the first couple of days. And then there's going to be other homes that have been sitting on the market for the last 6 months because the sellers overpriced their homes. They didn't want to follow the market or at least undercut the market and sell their home for the actual price that it should be at. And so they've been following it down, right? They listed at 500, then they're down to 490 and then 480 and then 460 and then 450, and they just keep dropping it, but the home stays on the market for longer than it should have. So this is a pretty drastic change here. Days on market 53. I again expect this to kind of level off somewhere in this 50 to 60, maybe 70 range. So I think this is going to be pretty typical, but that's not something necessarily to be concerned about. Yes, it's a little bit higher than we've seen in the last 5 to 8 years, but it's not something that's drastically going to make a huge difference, at least for most homes, right? It's just kind of another factor you can look at. So that's kind of a rough overview of what you're looking at for January data. Now, I actually want to talk about what this means for you if you're a buyer in the market or if you're a seller in the market. If you're a buyer in this market, you hold a lot of the cards, right? You're going to be able to go in and negotiate some, negotiate a lower price off of the listing price. You're going to be able to negotiate some credits. You're going to be able to negotiate the terms and the deadlines to be almost exactly what you would need or what you would prefer, right? You hold a lot of those cards, which is much different than how the market was even just a couple of months ago. So that's going to be a huge thing for you as a buyer. I do expect that we'll probably see prices continue to come down, maybe another 3 to 5% on a, month over, maybe not month over month basis, but if you kind of look at the long term, if you took 3-month groupings, I do expect that this median will probably come back down and hover somewhere around that 450 range, plus or minus a little bit. So I do expect that prices will kind of come down over the next couple months, but I do also think, or at least could see there being a huge run going into the spring, right? Usually the listing inventory will pick up going in from February into March, and that's when we really start to see prices increase. That's when we start to see more sales. If you look at this last year, February 2022 went from 3,000 home sales to 4,000 in just 1 month. So that's a pretty big jump. And we also saw prices increase the same, right? This is roughly $21,000 change in just 1 month. So obviously that was in the time when the market was crazy. We saw a lot of changes there, but this is what you'd usually expect to see in the spring months here in Salt Lake, right? There's going to be a lot of variability when you get into that spring selling season. We expect things to pick up. We expect more home sales, more buyers, more sellers, and typically prices to go up. But I actually think in this market, we'll probably see prices level off, and there will be some support at the current levels that we're at. We've seen a lot of people jumping back into the market with the interest rates that have been slowly coming down over the past couple of weeks. So with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and don't forget to check out the newsletter in the description box down below. We send out a weekly newsletter to keep you up to date on what's happening in Utah. We've been getting a ton of great feedback on that, so if you'd love to be a part of it, make sure to sign up, and also don't forget to reach out to me, call, text, or email anytime if you want to get information on what it's like to live, work, eat, sleep, and play here along the Wasatch Front. Then you got to get in touch with me. I've had people from all across the world reach out, and I cannot wait to hear from you as well. If you're looking to buy or sell real estate, I want to be your trusted real estate resource. With that said, guys, thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.